just to awaken you. um, इश्क करो इश्क करो तो सोच कर करना. If you fall in love, do it after thinking. Okay. ये बस तबाह करता है. इश्क करो तो सोच कर करना, ये बस तबाह करता है. It only destroys. मोहब्बत को बाज़ारों में बड़ा रुस्वा करता है. Meaning it only brings disgrace to love in the market. That's how you understand. ये इश्क है बड़ा कमीना. ये इश्क है बड़ा कमीना means this love is very mean. ये इश्क है बड़ा नादान. This love is very foolish. चोट दिल पर नहीं करता, रूह पर वार करता है. No, it does not hurt the heart, it attacks the soul. Okay, it's a very deep type of poem. It's what meaning when you really fall in love, you will have to get hurt also. So we have a job that some of us do, and that job, when we love too much, it does hurt. So one such job is what Gaurav does, It's a job that he loves, and his predecessors have loved, bringing out the current news to us. But it's a job also it will hurt very badly. I asked Gaurav to give us a short profile about him, so he himself has sent it. So I will read it as he speaks. I am a friar of the Northwest Capuchin province of Chris Jyoti. I made my first profession in 2011 and was ordained in 2020. So he is ordained priest. Thereafter, I was assisting in Batala, Punjab, in the school and in parish. I was then appointed the provincial secretary and the director of Media House Publications in Delhi. My latest assignment since 2023 is as the director and editor of Indian Currents. Balle Balle. Okay. So we wish you all the best, Gaurav. Let's do it.
Thank you, dear Father, for the wonderful introduction. आपके शायरी छा गई, आप छा गए. So I hope everyone is ready after yesterday's fun for some more serious discussions and talks. As Martin Luther would have said, you must fly. He says in the context of moving ahead, he says you must fly. But if you can't fly, at least walk. And if you are not able to walk, at least crawl, but not after drinking, right? So I am here as a media person, as Father said, as the editor of Indian Currents. We in our province we call it Bharatiya Bijli as a joke. Okay, so first of all, I was very grateful to Father Saju, CMI, for calling me here, and all of you for tolerating me, right, and for giving me this opportunity to have my voice heard among you. And I think that it is somewhat paradoxical, because I always write everything what is negative. I write critical assessments, and the topic that is given is on hope and peace. However, what I believe is that truth, however unsettling, must be spoken, right? And it is a precursor to real hope. Unless we speak the truth, there is no hope ahead. We cannot build a foundation of lies and then expect to get something very positive out of it, right? And so today's topic is also very, very huge, the topic that I was given. It's Ecclesial mission and consecrated communities to be vehicles of hope and peace. Vision 2033 for the next 10 years now. Okay, so what I think is that I won't be able to deal very justly with this topic at all. I am sure about that, because it is such a vast topic and the time allotted is not enough. I'm not complaining, but I am just reminding you that. Okay, so if you find that things are lacking, things are missing, it's because I could not present everything before you, right? So you may call me an alarmist or doomsayer, but the truth is that our condition is really very, very pathetic. We are moving at a very, moving towards a very deep, dark future. And I think many of the former speakers, like Archbishop Mena Parambil, Father MK, and many others have spoken about it in different ways. Okay, how we have reached to this point. Father George had said that we religious are a critical point in history. We must either make a difference, or we will become betrayers and disappear in the flow of time. Then, however, I'm going to try to add my own media perspectives to this, because what he said is actually setting the tone for the whole of this meeting itself. And this, even though this has been reiterated so many times, but I think there has been no positive developments towards it. But I cannot be completely critical about it, right? Because after all these sessions, there are slight changes. It's not as if there are no changes. See, our congregations are, on the whole, are like organisms which grow slowly. So these things do have an impact, but not so visibly that we are able to change immediately. Okay, so as a media person, I must show you some recent events, of course. So the first event that I will look at some recent news. Okay, so the first one is Sanatani, Karm Hi Dharm. It's an upcoming Odia film, and it has sparked some outrage within Odia, especially Odia circles, but also in rest of the Christian communities. It's actually a film which is basically speaking on directly against Christianity. They are trying to portray Christians as exploiting the tribals, and it is actually sending a very, very negative message. And this thing has actually come on Odia TV. It has already passed the censors, and it is going to be released on February 7th. So not that very far. It's going to be released very soon, and it is going to send some waves throughout the country. It is going to happen. And this news was shared by one of the sisters, Sister Sujata Jena. Some of you may be knowing her also. The second news is Rub Your Eyes, Hindu Rashtra Constitution to be unveiled at Mahakumbh on Basant Panchami. So another news is that a different constitution, a parallel constitution to ours, has already been created, and it is going to be circulated. It is going to be brought out, at least informally. And the news is that they have also planned to submit it to the government for approval. And the way the things are going, the way our own constitution is being sidelined, I think it will have at least some impact on the society. There are going to be changes inculcated from this constitution into our society, and that is going to affect us very, very negatively. Then the third news is the Supreme Court bench split on plea of the Christian man to bury his father in his native village. There was a man who was not allowed to bury his father in his own soil. And when you can read rest of the news and from different sources, but the gist is this, that when it reached the Supreme Court, there was a split in the bench itself. One judge said that the man should be allowed to bury his father in his native land. The other person completely disagreed, saying that the Christians are trying to make a riot out of this. But eventually, the judge who had even sided with the person, they relented and they said that the person must be buried somewhere else. This is completely going against the constitution. This is going completely against our secular values. So if this continues, how long are we going to be able to survive? Then another news, a UP temple has gotten an FCRI nod without a request. One of the temples in Vrindavan, Banke Bihari temple, it's a huge temple. They have received an FCRI And I know many of us are struggling with FCRI problems. Many of the people sitting here, congregations here, are actually struggling to get their FCRIs renewed or get FCRI permissions, right? But in the midst of that, something very, very ironic, these temples are getting uh, registrations, renewals without any, without even a request, without an application. And that actually confuses me, even if it does not confuse many. So, the foremost questions that arise are, how did we reach this point? How did we reach a point where all these things are happening? These news clips we saw, has anyone ever thought about it? Second, what were we doing while this situation grew to its current proportions? Because I think the Catholics are the educators of today's India. I don't mean that we are the current educators, but we have been at the forefront of education of India for past many, many years, many generations, not just one generation. Third question, can we do something to remedy them? And the fourth is, what must we do to remedy them? Okay, so now we are not able to take all these questions in this session, but at least we'll try to answer at least some of them. But going ahead, we must remember from where our charism comes, how we justify building institutions, building schools, and that is this mandate of Jesus. The mandate is, he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Right? That is the justification we give when we build schools. We say that we are trying to educate the nation on the gospel values. But how far are we actually doing that? Okay, so we'll look at it going forward. So, looking at the title once again, Ecclesial Mission and Consecrated Communities to be the Vehicles of Hope and Peace, Vision 2033. Now, 2033 would actually mean 2 millennia since the death of Jesus. It's not exactly 2 millennia, of course. The scholars would completely disagree. But it's more of a symbolic thing. But what is true here is that it does not deviate from what it symbolizes. It is not only a moment of reflection, but it is of recommitment. Reflection we all do. We do it every day during our prayers, during our gatherings, during our retreats, right? We do that reflection, but are we committing to it? Is this reflection creating any commitment from our part? That is one thing that we have to ask. And this hope and peace are not only abstract ideas, okay? We always think of hope and joy and peace. When we come in the mass, we say peace be with you with a very smiling face. But that ends with that there itself. When we come out of it, even within our communities, in our interaction with other people, that joy, that hope is never seen. And we are talking these days about becoming irrelevant. Our institutions are becoming nothing more than buildings. Our incomes are reducing. We had been talking about these things these days, if you remember. And Father was saying that Jesuit means when we said about building consciences within our schools, Father had commented that Jesuits had been doing it, but there was no change at all. So we must think, were we really educating the people, or were we making them just literate? The truth is that unfortunately, not only Jesuits, but even all the other congregations, including the Capuchins, I would say, that we have failed to inculcate a moral conscience within our students. Surely we have made them big people. We have made them IAS officers maybe. We have made them government leaders of the people. But have we inculcated moral values into them? I think that is a part that we have failed. We have forgotten to educate them. And I think now it is too late. It's too late. We should have started it at least a few decades ago if we wanted to see a change today. Now, since already we are getting sidelined, I think there is no more space for us to what do you call it, make new changes into the society. But I think there may be a possibility if we look into it. But even now, I'm quite sure that after this meeting, there is not going to be any real changes happening within our institutions, including mine. I know because I have told my provincial about these things, but I have never seen a change. But since it is the truth, I must speak. And the same thing happens with our formation. We are holding on to formation programs which have been centuries old, constructed before ages. Vatican II and all, 1960s. The world was quite different at the time. It's not the same world that we live in today. So why are we holding on to those values? Everyone has the same grind. And as Father Kulangra was saying yesterday during the last session, he said that if the person just follows the timetable which has been set before him, he will surely reach priesthood. But will he ever gain those values which were supposed to be gained? Then there are no questions asked. Actually, this clericalism and politics within the church, within our congregations, within communities has made us deaf to reality. Actually, I remember news from a few years ago. I did not get it. I searched it on the internet but could not find it. Actually, there was a case in Ranchi of a seminarian, a diocesan seminarian, I think, and he photographed a nun changing clothes in her room secretly, and he was caught. Do you know what happened? Nothing happened to him. He went ahead in his formation. He was given maybe a slight punishment, that's it. And then he was, and now he holds a far better post within his diocese. So, why has no one questioned this attitude? Why has no one questioned what is happening? And anyone who questioned also, they were just suppressed. But what is this attitude? In that case, it was a dissolution, but there are also cases within the religious. I personally know a case of a person who was sending very dirty images and messages to one girl. And when this case went to the police, the people within the congregation asked, why was this not suppressed? Why was the person not saved? Morally, how can we ask that question at all? Who was the perpetrator? It was the priest. It was a religious priest. He is somebody not supposed to do that at all. He is supposed to teach morality, and he is perpetrating that. And I know many of you have faced similar challenges within your own congregations. There have been people who have been supporting those kind of people, maybe because of political reasons, groupism, whatever may be. And you were not able to make a proper decision because of that, because of the pressure. But I think it's time to make a stand, because going ahead, it's not easy. As I said before, 2033 means the death of Jesus. Jesus suffered. He could have chosen not to suffer, right? He could have chosen to be just quiet, or he could have just spoken within limited circles, but he did not do that. What he did was, he chose to speak out, and he suffered for that. So, the first thing that we have to realize is that our congregations are macrocosms, as I said. It's like organisms that have grown organically. It's not something static. And the way it has grown is, it has collected a lot of debris over the centuries. It has grown so many arms, so many wings. And each society and organism actually has a limited lifetime. It has a life cycle, actually. There is a genesis, there is a growth, there is a breakdown, and there is a disintegration. So whatever we do, we cannot stop this life cycle, because that is how things work. That is how God has created everything. And since I am more of a technical guy, I am doing my master's in AI and ML, that is artificial intelligence and machine learning. I want to compare certain things with that. So let me compare with this some tech talk. So since we live in the world of AI, I think we must know how things work. To tell you frankly, there is nothing called AI at all. At least we have not reached it yet. What we are seeing today is something called machine learning. It's techniques trained on mathematical models, on data, and which gives us an output for some kind of input. So, what we generally use is something called neural networks. And neural networks work in this way. As you can see on the left side, there is something called the input. Those are x1, x2, up to xn. And there is something called a mathematical model, and it backpropagates. Backpropagates means when it finds an error, it sends it back, it adjusts the weights between the outputs, and it creates another output which is more validated, right? And one of the problems with this kind of thing is this is how our organisms, our society works. This is how our brains work. This is modeled on our brains. So how it works is it keeps on collecting data, and eventually it reaches a point which is called overfitting. Overfitting is when things are given to it in similar ways, and it only learns to act in those specific circumstances. Exactly like our seminaries. Over 13, 14 years of formation, we are put within the same kind of situation, same kind of environment, and we can only adapt and react to those things. There is something called underfitting also, which can result in poor performance. So I'm not saying that we must completely do away with our way of training, our way of formation. But there has to be some kind of changes so that we are not either overfitted or underfitted, not completely failing to change, and not so rigid also that we are unable to change given the circumstances. Okay, so once a provincial had told me that there is no meaning in religious life. It was my own provincial. I was really wonderstruck. I wanted to ask him that, then why are you religious? Why don't you just leave and go if you don't find any meaning in this? But I did not ask him, of course. Would not. But there's actually, when I think back now, I think that there is some kind of truth in that. We are becoming irrelevant because of the too much of baggage that we have collected. As I said, overfitting the model. We have collected too much of baggage, and any future growth requires that we prune ourselves, we prune our congregations, we prune our thinking, we reboot ourselves, we restart ourselves. As when a computer becomes slow, you restart the system to make it work a little more faster. The same way, we have to restart ourselves. And I have collected some pathways for consecrated communities as vehicles of hope. These are only certain things that I felt was more necessary. Many of the other speakers have already spoken about most of them. So I am not going to give a very detailed explanation, and we don't have enough time also for that. So the first thing is that we must go back to the sources. As I said, spoken many times, but no one cares in the end. We have very, very brilliant sources within our own congregations, our founders, but we fail to emulate them. We try to justify ourselves in different ways, saying that we are trying to adapt, but no, we are not trying to adapt. We are becoming more and more loose. We are going away. We are getting underfitted in these situations. Then I have an example, like I was telling somebody yesterday, that a team of friars had come from Rome to give us a class about the history of our founder of our congregation. And then they gave a very, very detailed history, which actually we had never encountered in our Indian context, within the context of the formation. And then I asked, why was this not spoken of during the formation years? It would have had much more of a greater impact on our lives, even though there are certain negative things, of course. And what they said was that you people are not ready. How is that possible? We say people are not ready, brothers are not ready. How is that possible? At 21 years of age, 22 years of age, people are, boys and girls are already running businesses. They are running governments. They are leaders of their company. And how are brothers not able to run that? Only shows our immaturity. So, there is a general feeling that brothers are not mature enough. I think that we should keep that out of our minds. We should keep it out. It's only our arrogance that we are trying to put them down, so they remain under us. I'm not saying all of you are doing that, no. But it is happening within the congregations. And I think that we must go back to stricter observance. It's part of going back to the sources. If you have asked anyone who is actually living a proper life within the congregation, they will never say that we must be relaxed. They will only say that we must go back, we must become stricter. At least those who have realized that they were living a non-genuine life, that they were living a very lax life. If you ask them, and when they later realize, they will say that we should have gone back to the original stricter observance. And moderation becomes passivity. Whenever we try to become moderate, we try to bring ease, comfort into our life. We become more passive. It does not lead to moderation ever. It always leads to passivity. If we leave gaps for laxity, it is going to again be reinterpreted, and it is going to become an unhealthy obsession towards ease and comfort. Then we have we talked about, somebody made a comment about highly motivated persons. They don't want to join. But for those people, actually, we are somebody who are playing. So little children play house. They play, being mothers and fathers. But we inside the seminaries, after growing so much, we are playing like little children. We are playing to become little children. That's what I feel. So, for rejuvenating ecclesial life, what should we do? First, we should start at home. We are talking about being vehicles of hope, but our vehicles are parked within the garage. We are not willing to take it out because it will require effort, it will require fuel to move ahead. So, what we do, we keep it inside. And I think there's a need to change our formation quite a bit. What we are doing right now is something called collective formation. But what we must move towards is mentoring. I have put a short list out here on what mentoring and formation is. Mentoring is actually more about personal and adaptive growth rather than a standardized structure. The focus is on individual development and growth. And it must be flexible enough so that it adapts to each individual's needs. What we do right now is just put them in a system of formation of seminaries, one after the other, and they move on, go ahead. As I said, as many said, just become priests. But in the end, they have no goals. They don't know what they're doing. So we must foster synodality. We have so many synods, talk about synods, but there is no synodality among us. When we go back to our communities, not only we, whoever may be there in the community, there is no checking with the other what we have decided upon. There is an emphasis for need for participatory leadership. Okay, so these things you all know. So the next point is reclaiming prophetic voice. Okay, so now this is a more important part. Reclaiming prophetic voice would mean that we become fundamentalists. We always cry against fundamentalism. But what we see the growth of most today, we see the growth of fundamentalism. Whether it be Europe, whether it be America, whether it be India, whichever country it is. Only fundamentalists are growing. Why? We again talked that during this conference. If we leave space, if we leave laxity, we were speaking about postmodernism. We are speaking about post-truth. If we leave religion out of it, something else is going to come and dominate. and that will grow into something very negative. So I think I give a very counter example, I give a very counter argument. We must become fundamentalists. We should fight for our faith. Then consecrated communities must reclaim their prophetic role by speaking truth to power. I know it's very challenging, very difficult, but this can only be done when we are able to leave everything which we are carrying out of our package. Otherwise we will always be afraid of whether somebody will attack us, they will take away what we have. And keeping silent is also complicit with that. Not only active, but also passive. Okay. So, my dear fathers, this is most of which what I wanted to say. I will leave out the media narratives and all. So, I have, as I said in the beginning, I have a problem with these meetings and conferences because nothing actually gets done. But I think we must remember these words of Jesus. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its saltiness, how can it be restored? It is no good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. If we are not ready to change today, if we are not ready to bring back the saltiness back into our lives, into our congregations, I think we are going to fade into obscurity. Thank you.